Hey folks, good evening and welcome to this video on our discussion for weekend hackathons. And right now we're just focusing on two products, Decathlon and Amazon Fresh. There's a backlog of products that are remaining that we've completed challenges on. So I'm going to go in the reverse order since this is pretty fresh. Sorry for the pun, but since this is pretty fresh, we are going to start with Amazon Fresh. So to start with, I've just noted down some pointers I'd like to discuss. And with regards to Amazon Fresh, there is, and more so Amazon, there's something that one as designers and PMs or young designers and PMs, one needs to understand, which is very different from most of the other challenges that we do, right? Any large scale company like, say, a Google or an Amazon, even a Meta, there's one major difference that separates them from everybody else. Anyway, the problem, I'll come to that, but the problem was to, simplify this page, which is shown for Amazon Fresh, and then there's this message which is that you can only purchase certain amount of goods and only then you can check out, right? So this was the problem. How do you make it better? Obviously it looks a bit clunky and looks like a stopgap kind of a thing. The idea was to make it more appealing and homogeneous with what Amazon has, right? So that is the major idea. But before that, what is needed to be understood is Amazon is different from everybody else in terms of most of the others, in terms of how they go about their design, right? It is deeply, deeply tested. Every single element that you see, and this page may not be that much, it might be one of the various options that are shown to people. It may be a test element that we saw at one particular time. But there are several tests that are done in the millions, I would say, and only then something is chosen, right? So with Amazon, something doesn't change overnight. Like you cannot suddenly have the buttons looking totally different. Yes, they might be having different test versions which are going on for multiple months or years for all you know, but it is not something that will transform overnight, right? They'll never have a redesign, like a redesign is known to be there. It'll be something that will be done over a long period of time with a lot of test data, and basis the test data and what comes out of that, only then they will go in one particular direction, right? So that is one very important thing to understand. And the reason I put that out is that no matter what you suggest, right, in your designs, it has to fit in very, very well with what Amazon is currently doing. So that is also from the user's perspective, because you cannot suddenly change what the colors are, what the guidelines are. I mean, whatever guidelines you see on the page are the guidelines, because they will differ from page to page also, or from session to session. Anyway, and the reason I wanted to show this is because there was a very nice design submission that came in, and we had it in our honorable mentions. And this is from Harshad. And as you can see, this is very, very nicely done, right? Any modern e-commerce based checkout should look something like this, but that is not how it works out, right? Amazon would never in one go do this. It might do certain elements of this, but kudos to Harshad for trying this out, for putting it out there. Not one of the winners, but this is what I wanted to share. That Amazon as such does not do these drastic changes, right? Or no matter what the reason being, right? So they'll test it out, they'll test each element out, they'll test each button out with different ways and options of showing it, with copy also to some extent, and only then go ahead and make such a large change, right? Hence, minor changes is what we are looking for when you have large brands, right? You cannot expect overhauls because they may not be pragmatic, right? While this is a great suggestion, this is not really pragmatic, and hence the winners, if you see, are very much in line with what Amazon has today, or they're slightly better versions of it, right? So this is the winning submission from our side, like we felt, largely because the minute we opened this, and as you can see, there are three second place people, and there are a lot of honorable mentions. This design from Imtiaz kind of stood out. It stood out in the sense that it just feels like an Amazon page. Like it's an image, but I'm sure when you're seeing it on your screens, it might look like an exact Amazon page. And yet it is not a clunky one, right? So the one that you have here, while this is an Amazon page, in reality, it does not feel like a true Amazon page. It looks like somebody just put some band-aid here and there, right? So bringing that homogeneity to the page without adding too many elements, without letting go of any elements, is a real art, right? And that is, as an evolved designer, you will come to that art, right? Most of you are, some of you are learning, and some of you are completely fresh to it. So hence, just look at the design and see the subtlety in terms of what he's changed and what he's retained and where he's kept the things. I'll give a very simple example. View all cards, clear cards, right? The way the line of sight goes when you're looking at these elements is so consistent. Of course, there might be some issues in this design as well, but the consistency that comes through makes it look like a fantastic Amazon page. Even the sizing of the fonts between the elements is done very, very nicely, right? And that's not because Amazon does a great job. Amazon also has a lot of issues in its live pages. Yet he's done a very, very nice job, and hence he's the winner. Not because it's some revolutionary design or something. It is just consistent with what Amazon has, and it looks like an Amazon page. One very important point where a couple of designs they're done very, very nicely, but they did not think about the CTA, the action that is needed. The action is not checkout. You cannot check out from this page. That is literally what you cannot do. Yet a lot of people have said proceed to check out from this page, and that is what Amazon also. Unfortunately, I saw one more page where in fact it is open here. It also does for some reason. You cannot check out. And today they in fact the version that I was seeing. Okay, now they logged me out. Today the page that they're showing has this ticker which shows these men this much is completed, and hence I believe a lot of you guys had that progress bar. But when we were looking at it, there was no progress bar. So as I've been saying, right, there are several versions that they test out. Like this is the one, right? And it says proceed to buy because they've changed the offering only. Right now, there is no limitation of 299 or whatever it was. Today, I don't think that exists. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the price, but it is a different version. Again, the idea here being that he's focused very, very well on the elements that matters, downplayed the elements that don't matter, and there is a consistency in terms of how the elements are arranged also, not just the way they're designed, but they're arranged. The line of sight goes in very, very nicely. It does not break the way one looks at the page, right? So this was Imtiaz, very, very nicely done. And then there were 3 second place. Now, why there were 3 second places? Because we were not able to pick any one of these as a distinct second place, right? And the rest is say, whatever honorable mentions or what you call. And hence we did not want to, we could have said that, okay, none of these are second place, but we felt that all are deserving second place. It's not their mistake that the others are also deserved, right? Yet there are some gaps between this and what could have been. So for example, in this submission from Richa, this green kind of indicates, at least felt to us, the green indicates a positive feeling. And one of the other designs has also done that. Maybe if that was not the case, it would have been a clear second. The others would have been slightly further back. Because again, if you can see the CTAs is disabled, the main CTA, the main focus goes to add more items. Very cleanly done design, looks homogeneous. Again, all the other elements that are there in the previous design. But just this green highlight, I don't think, we felt that it did not work. Again, I mean, design is, subjective, but that is what we felt. And again, the benchmark was the first place, so we had to see what mattered and what. Then there was this one from Sachin. I think excellent work. Just one part, Sachin, if you're listening in, I mean, and the others also seeing this, is that while this the idea was to highlight this highlights even more than what other elements exist on the page, right? So just font consistency across these elements is missing, right? So if this font size, whatever it is, I don't know what this is, 16px maybe. If this was 16px and the icon size was 20 or 18, I think you would be on to just a clear second. You would be ahead of the others. But it just felt like, just it's stuck onto the page, which is not how it should look. And especially because the CTA is so much smaller, right? So if all of these 3 fonts, or maybe at least these 2 fonts, had one consistent style, then things would have been better. Just that one element, I mean, it's such a small difference. But yeah, as you can see, I mean, we have to be nitpicky. And also the consistency of the fonts in general, right? So remove is just too small, whereas minimum is just too large, right? So the benchmark is a little higher in this channel because there are such few things to change. Hence, that consistency was needed, which was missing, and hence this was the second phase submission. And this one again, very nicely done. This was actually my original, the first. So I chose Imtiaz, and then I chose this one as my second, and then we started debating. And what happened was we started realizing there's more to this design than that is needed, right? So for example, the highlighting of the red, while it does its job, it's supposed to stop you and it is like an error or an issue. Unfortunately, and it's not your mistake, but unfortunately, Amazon uses red for offers and collection. So this is a CTA, right? This is a CTA element. Like you can action on this, right? That is what they're intending, and hence it's red. And this is not a CTA. You cannot action on this. You cannot action on this, right? Hence the inconsistency comes through, and hence we felt that maybe there's something lacking here. If this was not the case, if this was like a more subtle color, and this was a more subtle color, again you would have been. So all these 3 designs had certain things that could have been a little bit better, and they could have been on the way to be clear second places rather than shared second place. Hence we said like, okay, let's just agree to give all 3 as the second place winner. That was the reason. I hope the people who have not taken part, they also see what the subtlety was, the difference was, and the people who've taken part and whose designs these are, they also get it, right? Just a couple more others, since you folks said that you want to see all the designs. Unfortunately, we are not able to show all 26. There are reasons for that. One day maybe I can explain to you, but it's a product related issue, not so much as our ability to show it. But anyway, we'll try and show at least 5, 6, 7, 8 designs, and I think that suffices because not all are top notch. There are some which are not worth wasting time on, so we skip those. And doing that exercise from a product perspective would be a challenge. Hence, we just pick the ones. So this again is a great submission. This one is from Devesh, and this green realized today that Amazon itself is doing it right. Again, this gives a very positive kind of indication that sab acha hai, you're going in the right direction, and it looks like a completion. While a nudge is nice and the copy is nice, you're just there. I don't think from this perspective, here we are not trying to motivate the user, right? We are not trying to nudge the user to buy more. It is a restriction that we've placed. And hence, this may not, although Amazon itself is doing like this, right? Amazon itself has that progress bar. I don't know how useful it is. As you saw the other designs, they did a much better job without having that kind of a progress bar. And the positivity is reinforced with this, green icon. Very minor points. We are nitpicking literally, but as you can see, you have to find those subtle differences, right? So this was from Devesh, nice work. And this one I've already shown you, right? So this is from Harsha. Yeah, that I think that pretty much sums it up. Yeah, this is one more from Omkar. Again, nice effort, but this element just does not fit in very well with the rest of the page. And also some improvement could have been done here. Hence, we just said, this is a nice worked out design, but there could be a little bit more. So there are a lot of others also. So this one again from Pradipto, very nice work. Overall clean design. But again, you've gone ahead and changed the way Amazon highlights, price points. In fact, it does when it's discount. I think this is the color that it uses to show the discounted price, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, the discounted price is shown in red. Green is not a font color that they use. At least that's what I have not seen. You can do that. I mean, there's nothing wrong in that. But then the problem is that it creates inconsistency. So if this is green and this is not clickable, then how is this clickable? Lots of issues come up, right? So you have to be very, very careful with the colors you use. And again, this feels like it is locked. Using the lock icon, I don't know if it makes sense because right now what it feels like is you have to unlock something. It's not an unlock. Like an unlock is like an achievement level that you reach. If you relate to what I'm trying to say, that is not what this is. This is a restriction. It's like a barrier. A barrier and an unlock is two different things. While they do similar kind of activities, and unlock is you progress towards it and you get to a level. Whereas a barrier is like you cannot go ahead. Right? You're stopped. So that is what needed to be indicated, which this does not. And again, the use of green, you should have been a little bit more subtle with it. But overall, it's a very nice design, nicely put out, right? So that is pretty much it from the Amazon challenge. And what I wanted to share in the was the same thing that with Amazon, the changes can be only subtle because I have a friend at Amazon who works in the product team. He's a product manager, not a designer. But he was sharing with me that to make something like that, and that is just basic password recovery. It takes months and months of cycles, just one field, right? So imagine to make this kind of a change, so many things need to be right? So hence the changes need to be subtle, in line with what Amazon is doing, and yet better than what they have, right? So this obviously, and again, there was one point which I mentioned here, which is Amazon you need to understand, and Amazon in India. So this page specifically, I think, is an Amazon India design page. It's not a global page. The global page, I'm assuming, I may be wrong here, will not look like this because this looks like a sticky that they've just put up, right? Just somebody was lazy enough to just put this. It does not look an element that was well thought out. The spacing from the top, a lot of the elements don't seem like they've put in, largely because Amazon Fresh is almost like a startup in India. They've started several times in India. In fact, Amazon Fresh was called Now, I think it was called something else earlier. So they're trying very hard. They have this Manoj Vajpayee ad which is going on. Hence, it's like a stopgap. But an Amazon Fresh US, I don't think would look like this. I may be wrong, need to check. But again, that context is very important when you're designing, right? Yeah, that's pretty much it. If anybody has any questions on this Amazon challenge, please do drop them in the comments or the chat. Omkar, you have a question? Go ahead. I think we have couple of minutes before we move on to Decathlon. Go ahead, Omkar.
Yeah. Hey, hi, Akshay. So I was one of the mentions. I
Yeah.
think so. I got some good pointers here. Thanks for that.
Okay.
I
Great.
joined a few minutes late, so
No
in
problem.
just the winners design, I just
Yeah.
had one question around it.
Yeah.
So in the design, the alert box is not kept at the top; it's below.
Yes.
So what if you add multiple products? The alert box will keep shifting at the bottom, so it
Uh,
won't be visible.
when you have multiple alert boxes, okay.
No,
So
no.
that
If you add multiple products, the
okay.
alert box will keep shifting down, right? And it won't be visible.
You're saying multiple lists. So yeah, that's a good point. That's a fair point. But one thing that is important, the alert box as such is not, it is highlighting what the issue is, but there are two
Hmm.
places that the Amazon is doing it, right? And I'm
Okay.
actually in favor of moving the alert box down because it is, if you see the line of sight, my line of sight comes from the top, right? Shopping cart, okay, product, okay. And then the natural progression is towards this right side. The alert box actually is not adding much value. In fact, you can actually do away with it because there is a reinforcement here which says add items worth 156. If this was not there, yes, your point is very valid. That hey, this is going to go shift downwards and all of those elements come in, right? That is definitely worth considering. But de-highlighting the alert box is not a bad thing, to be honest, because my natural progression is towards the right, right? My natural progression is not top down. Yes, obviously, if there are 15 items, I'm going to scroll. And in that case, yes, it might so happen. But what we had given is a very specific context where there were 2 items I had added. And again, when there are 3 items, most likely you will not see this alert box because you won't have that issue. Showing right 291 price point, this did not come through. So there are reasons. I'm more in, again, that's a subjective call. I'm more in favor of not having that alert box at all. He's done a reasonable job of reducing its prominence, largely because my eyes are going to be here. You try it out. I mean, you can try it out yourself. I mean, if you remove the alert box, do you still get the same message? I think you'll get it because the point is the user needs to know that he needs to add more elements to the cart, right? And that is what happens, right? If you see this design from Amazon, what happens is the line of sight starts here. Yes, you get the message, but even then my brain says, "Acha, theek hai, I'm going to go and click here," right? But here what happens is that it feels like, okay, it's going to be a proper checkout, which is not the case. So, yeah, alert box zyada help nahi karta, right? It is just a subtle way of communicating. Hence, the red one, we were like, you saw the one which was red, right?
Yeah. That's completely causing like a warning and error.
Yeah, but it clashes with the design. Now, problem वही है ना, दोनों balance करना है, right? तो clash भी करना नहीं है, attention भी देना है, ये journey नहीं तोड़नी, because the user used to this left to right. On mobile, this would be an even more interesting challenge. We've not done that. But I saw the mobile version of it. ऐसा कुछ करते हो, top down करते हैं, वहाँ और interesting हो. So if you want, you can try that out and see what you can do there. But yeah, good suggestion. I think it did skip our mind. We knew it is there, but we wanted it not to be of high prominence. It's just a reinforcement.
Yeah, the right side box is very apt. I loved it.
Yeah. That is where the user will most likely go. He'll go to the right, and that is where the messaging has to be there. Yeah.
Yep. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So we'll move on very quickly to the decathlon challenge, and I just close this part. And the decathlon challenge is very close to me, largely because I'm a cyclist. I don't know how many of you are. I think Jayesh is a cyclist. I don't know if he's here, but 2 or 3 things that are needed to be known, right? What happens in e-commerce, and I'll call Decathlon e-commerce largely because it is an online site which is selling goods, and it is through a different logistical arm compared to just the store. They get things from the store also, but they have a different logistics center which caters to that, right? So I'm calling it e-commerce, right? While it is not just e-commerce, there are lots of other things. It is e-commerce. What happens is even Amazon's challenge, right? They have these cards which are designed, and there was a question from Dave Group, I think, and the question was on this, like, how do you decide what style of card you go, right? Do you go 2 into 2 or 2 into 3 or one below the other, or the Amazon style? My sense is while as an e-commerce platform, you can just have 2 or 3 types of cards, right? For this category, there is no place for having 4 cards or 6 cards. The idea is not to show multiple cycles in a fold. That is not the idea, which is the idea with e-com, because you have to do you'll have 1.5, 2 scrolls, and in that you got to get the user to tap and click, and hence you show more cards. In this case, that is not the thing. You want to give an experience of the product, right? And that is because the price point here is not a 500,000. It is minimum 5,000, which is the cheapest cycle, I believe, or maybe it's 4,000 something, but 5,000 going up to maybe lakh or lakh plus, right? And obviously with accessories, etc., it goes pretty beyond that. So it's like buying a bike. Would you buy a bike with a small card, which is like 2 into 2 on a mobile? So you wouldn't. You want richness in the design, right? And that's why that page that Decathlon is created, and surprisingly, they have gone ahead and done a redesign. Redesign तो कर लिया, मतलब style guide वगैरह वो सब कर लिया, but the card remains exactly the same, which is stunning, right? Because there are so many things that are wrong. I mean, I wish I could do an audit kind of thing and highlight what is wrong with these cards, and especially from a cyclist perspective, right? I'm not even talking from a user's perspective or a designer's perspective. An actual cyclist perspective, you come here, there are so many things you don't get, right? And yet they've kept them in the redesign as well. Anyway, the point being that this card has to be richer in multiple ways. Richer in terms of the imagery it is showing, the scale which it is giving, the information it is showing, right, regards the product. There's so many things that can be done with it, and we are just scratching the surface with our challenge, right? So cards are a special category in this one. It is a special type of category, hence the card has to be special, right? Using the landscape well, these are very similar points and show what matters, right? Again, what we were looking for, these elements, we've shared this on the group. I'm just sharing here for reference. Anybody wants to pause and just see it during the video, you can do that. But what happened was a lot of people in the redesign, and I'll show those designs first rather than the winners. A lot of people thought that the idea is to pitch e-commerce, right? E-commerce type of things. Two remaining, going out of stock, quickly add to cart. You have these nudges that are created. You have this on e-commerce. I think I forget the term. It is C something, C2 something, whereby the optimization of these elements comes in, right? You have a buy now button, you have a shortlist button, and so many elements that come in. Cycling and purchasing of a cycle or those kind of things is not that traditional e-commerce nudge. That those nudges work, but they don't work as well, right? So if you tell me that there are only two cycles left, it's not going to make a big difference to me. And this is not that design. I'm just sharing, right? Hence, those traditional e-commerce ones, you need to give a little less weightage and respect the category a little bit more. Think of it as buying a bike. Buying a bike is not an easy purchase. In fact, go to, I think, Ather's website. Ather's website, we done it long time back. We done a challenge on that. We compared Ather with Ola and all of those when they were launching. This is long back. Do check out what Ather has. I don't know what they have right now, but that time they had a lot of richness in the page. You could choose the color, you could see how it looks, you could do a 360, lots of things, because that is what a user wants to try before he goes to the store. Very unlikely they're going to buy from it. There'll be few users who do not have a Decathlon store in their vicinity, those pin codes, right? But even then, they would want to see as close an experience. So with that long commentary, I will come to the designs. I hope that commentary helps, because that I'm not able to articulate on the page or just by the designs that are going to be shown, right? That is a very, very important point before you see these designs, that there is a context to how a cyclist tries to, or a cyclist or want to be cycling, even it could be a kid. They would want to experience the product as close as possible, right? So this is the winning submission. This is from Jayesh. Yes, Jayesh. And it has almost every element that I just talked about, right? So first of all, I think the number one thing that you need to understand is that cycling, and just as cycling or bikes or any of these, like for example, car, right? You can't say buy a car. There are different categories in cars. There's an SUV, there's a small car, there might be a pickup, there might be a Jeep. There are lots of different categories that are there, and that category decides a lot of the other things that come. The search term is just bicycle. So search term is car, for example. But you need to categorize that. And I love the way he's put a hybrid first up, because when a cyclist or a person who's getting into cycling, they decide based on that. There are different categories here. You can do a little research. It's a fun category, and you can take up the cycling also. Sorry for that small pitch on that. But yeah, so there are hybrid cycles, there are road cycles, then there are fixies, there are lots of different types. That type has to come out, and that is the richness of the car, right? He's also trying to show something like a 180, a 360 degree, not a 360, 180 degree kind of view where you can turn the cycle. How that happens is not the point of this challenge, but he's trying to build in those elements where you can do those. And I absolutely love the fact that he's done these icons. You can see these icons very, very nicely done, slightly grainy here, but it's an aluminum frame. It has disc brakes. These are exactly the points that matter. And again, this is just one category cycles. For any large category like this, right? So for example, you want to, purchase, I don't know, what is an expensive, a TV, for example, or 1.5 lakh, 2 lakh TV. Yeah. Those expensive TVs. Things, very specific things matter in that. Not all the general things that are there in a TV matter. Those things need to be brought out, and in a way that matches the category. Not a generic kind of, acha, theek hai, as they've done, right? They've just put labels here, right? Disc brake. Now look at that disc brake and look at this disc brake. This really does communicate what a disc brake is, right? So beautifully done. Again, he still used that add to cart. It may or may not be needed. But again, since he's showing one entire card in one fold, it's fine. He has enough space to play around with. But again, people who've done that in those small cards, I don't think that is relevant. So most of our winners or top picks have been people who prioritize for space. Slight bias, but I think that bias is right in something, right? So this is Jayesh. This is the second page from Ashok. Again, very nicely done. Subtle design. The elements that matter are highlighted as text, not images like icons here. But it's very, very nicely done. And what I liked about Ashok's design is that it fits in very quickly with not the current design, because they've redesigned it, but it would have fit in very, very easy. In fact, between these two, implementing Ashok's design would be much easier to do, right? Compared to implementing the winner's design, because almost every element that he has here is there in their cards, but he's just aligned them in a way that makes a lot more sense. One very, very important criteria that most of you missed is that even right now, Decathlon has this issue, right? They highlight, the number one thing they highlight, the bold or the largest font size is given to the brand name, which is BT Win. There are 2-3 brands. I think there are 2 brands. In cycling, there are not too many brands. These are all in-house brands. That is not what matters. That is not basis which, at least for a Decathlon product, for a cycling product, nobody goes to Decathlon and says, नहीं मुझे BT Win का ही cycle चाहिए. कोई और cycle नहीं लूँगा मैं. ऐसे नहीं होता. Like these are not the top end cycles, right? There's a Sport or there may be Cannondale. Those kind of brands, yes. Then you can highlight the brand. But here what matters is the category. The category is a hybrid cycle. And in that, they have a smaller section or whatever it may be, right? And also the size, that also matters. So that he's understood very, very nicely. I think even the previous design, right? Even the previous design, right? He's highlighted reverse side and hybrid rather than B2B. Very subtle things. And again, you might say, I'm not a biker, how would I know? But that is what you can learn, right? For each category, there is something that is important, something that is not important. So this was from Ashok, very, very well. And this was, I think I just skipped to 1 second, Imtiaz, right? Yeah. So Imtiaz came first in this Amazon. He came, we said almost a third, we don't give thirds, but he's done very, very well. Only thing is that the Ashok has done a little better job on these cards, right? So a less clunky design, I wouldn't call this clunky, but his design just looks smoother, right? Maybe the gray background of the cards help those elements. You can compare it, during the video, just go back and forth, you can have a look. This is a very nice design from Abhigya. Didn't come out as a winner. Nice because overall design may not be that great, but she's also done a very nice job. A little lazy because she's put disc brakes and then she's put suspension. This is not how a suspension looks like. Anyway, we just wanted to show that there are different ways of showing the same thing. And again, this is a 2x2. Even in a 2x2, you can do that. These nudges, as I was mentioning, because of the size constraint, you may not want to have, add to cart, those kind of thing, explore or, go forward or just tap it because these are tappable cards. That could be sufficient, right? And one more, this one we like largely because this is the only one. And I think this is surprising that most people didn't do, even the winners didn't do. You will compare. There is no chance that you're not going to compare different cycles, right? So comparison is going to be the number one thing that a person does, or maybe number 1, 2, or 3. It will be an action that the user would want to do. Any kind of thing. Like you want to buy a mutual fund, for example. You want to buy a policy, for example. You want to buy a TV, for example. You will compare. So this nudge is the reason why this design exists. The rest of the elements are nicely done, but this nudge is not something that any of the design, none of the other, I don't remember how many submissions, but none of the other ones had, which is a surprise, right? I mean, so many similar designs, but this one element, only this design had. So nice work. This is from Pooja. Nicely done. And this card, this was the first submission that we went through. And this tries to do a lot of things. Okay? If this was a desktop kind of thing, I think this would stay somewhere near a top kind of design. But this is not. This is a mobile-based one. Yet it will be slightly grainy, but she's tried to, Sonali. Sonali tried to highlight all the elements that matter. I believe this is how the desktop one already looks like. But again, it's a thing worth considering, what to show, what not to show, and how to show it, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it, I believe. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And just the last point which I was mentioning, right? And now that you've seen the designs, I think that you'll relate better. A lot of people were influenced by traditional purchase levers, right? Add to cart, 4 left in stock, delivery date. All of these don't matter as much when the person has come to explore. Afterwards, yes, later on you have the inner card. At that place, 100% these things matter. But first off, for a cycle, 15, 20,000 kind of a purchase may not be that rare. That's pretty much it for this video. Any questions on this challenge? Anything, this or earlier challenge on Amazon Fresh, if anybody who's recently joined in, do ask. Otherwise, you're pretty much done. We'll cover the other challenges. There's lots of interesting challenges, Uber, etc. As things go along, and they may not be, like a live kind of thing. They might be recorded, which I'll share on the group as well. Okay, guess no other questions. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much for joining in. We'll upload this very, very shortly and share the link on the group. And look forward to seeing you in the next challenge. And good night. Bye-bye. Thanks.